Hello, team players. So I'm here with a video on what over 50% of you voted as to what you were most excited about when it came to PaizoCon, which is, of course, Player Core 2 spoilers. Let's just dive right into this. I'm going to start with Ancestries. The Ancestries we're getting in this book are the Catfolk, the Hobgoblin, the Kobold, the Lizard Folk, the Rat Folk, and the Tengu. We also got two other Ancestries, but they have different names. The Kolo is the new name for the Gnoll, and the Tripkey is the new name for the Gripply. The Kobold got some pretty significant changes. First of all, they don't gravitate towards dragons specifically now. They can still gravitate toward them, but they're more gravitated towards sources of magic depending on their heritage. And just like the dragons in the monster core, we still have kobolds that are tied to magical traditions. You know, your arcane, divine, occult, and primal. They did say that the cringe feat is still going to be there, and they did mention the elemental heart kobold, which they said would be tied to elemental planes, but didn't go into any more detail than that. As for the Tengu, all they pretty much said was that Tengu are going to get flight earlier than other ancestries, which is kind of a big deal. They didn't say how much earlier, but they did say earlier. Tengus might be incredibly broken depending on how much earlier they get flight, but we will have to see when we get the full book. And of course, in Player Core 2, we're getting 3 versatile heritages, including one brand new one. In this book, we're getting the Dhampir and the Duskwalker, as well as the brand new Dragonblood heritage. These are going to be more tied to dragons than kobolds are. The only thing they really said here was that there's going to be 4 lineages, and they're all going to be tied to magical traditions, just like dragons are in the monster core. And remember, these are versatile heritages, which means you can take them with any ancestry. You could be a dragon-blooded hobgoblin if you wanted, which I think is pretty cool. Now let's talk about the big one. Classes. Starting with the Alchemists. First of all, they did tell us that all the alchemical items are going to be in this book. That means if you're playing an alchemist, you'll find everything you need in this book. Secondly, the Alchemist class is one of the ones in this book that got heavy revisions. You're still going to be able to create alchemical items at the beginning of the day, but they divided it up into that and versatile vials, which essentially allow you to use quick alchemy with them. And you can fill them with whatever you want. You can even throw the vials themselves as basically acid flasks. And you're going to be able to do something special with these versatile vials based on your research field. But they didn't go into any more detail than that. And as if Alchemist wasn't flexible enough already, they're adding new feats that offer even more flexibility. The example they gave was Mutant Physique, which is one feat that gives a bonus for Bestial mutagens and Quicksilver mutagens, both of them, instead of just one. I do think that mutagenous alchemists needed a feat like this, because I do think that they are probably one of the least versatile research fields for the alchemist. That's not to say that mutagenous weren't flexible, because they certainly are. They're still an alchemist after all. But this particular subclass did need some more flexibility. And I think feats like this are exactly what it needs. Barbarian didn't get a whole lot of changes, but they did get some. Barbarians can now rage multiple times per combat, but they only get the temporary HP once. Secondly, the Fury Instinct does give a little bit of a damage bonus now. And they did mention a new feat for the Fury Instinct, Desperate Wrath. With this feat, if you've got low HP, you can lower your defense even more for a big boost in accuracy, which honestly sounds perfect for a Barbarian. Lower defense for more damage? Yeah, please. For a Barbarian, absolutely. But the big thing here is raging as a free action when you roll initiative. Yeah, that's right. You no longer have to waste an action raging in the beginning of the combat. Now you can just do it as part of your initiative, which is awesome. I think we all expected the champion to get big revisions, mainly because of the whole no alignment thing anymore. First, champions no longer have a champion's reaction. Now they just have a 15-foot aura that certain abilities are tied to. And of course, you're still going to pick a deity, and you're going to pick a sanctification just like a cleric would. But a big thing that they revealed is the grandeur cause, a brand new cause. But for this cause, you must be holy. That's all they really said about it, though. So we'll get more information when Player Core 2 officially comes out. And of course, every cause will get a devotion spell, obviously, a unique one to them. Not just, lay on hands or touch of corruption. And of course, more devotion spells from feats. Like, for instance, Shielded Spirits, which is available to all champions and is a more defensive option. They also got the Blessings of the Devoted ability, which they said is similar to Divine Ally, but more general. And you're going to be able to pick up a mount at first level if you want. But the champion did lose some stuff, mainly because of space. The two they mentioned are Litanies and Oaths, although they did say that the Oaths are going to be in Divine Mysteries coming out later this year. And that's pretty much all they said about the champion. Now, let's talk about the Investigator. They said that they felt like people had a hard time when they rolled the Paizo stratagem and didn't want to attack. So, instead, you can now use the Paizo stratagem on either an attack roll or a skill check, which is pretty awesome. Also, Pointed Question now has combat applications, which is pretty big as well. And brand new feats, but they didn't go into any detail as to what those new feats were. So we'll have to see what happens when the book officially comes out. They actually thought Monk was pretty perfect the way it was, but they did change a couple things for it. First, when you get Expert in Unarmed Strikes, you do get crit specialization effects instead of having to take a feat for it, which is rather huge actually. If you don't know, the critical specialization effect for Brawling is slowed 1, which is pretty amazing. I do understand why they originally gave it as you had to take a feat for it, but yeah, I think this is going to make Monk a heck of a lot better. Also, monastic weaponry is now going to apply to ancestry weapons, which means that if you're an elf and want to use elven curved blades, there you go. You just have to take monastic weaponry. Honestly, I didn't think monks needed much either, so I'm glad they pretty much kept them the same. Another one that got big changes is the Oracle, which I am very happy about. Oracle was way too complicated, and it seems like they've made some oracles less complicated, which is good. Now oracles have the curse-bound condition, which I think, from what I've heard, seems like it's going to work pretty much the same as the curses do now, but they're not tied to focus spells anymore. They're tied to curse-bound feats. So your oracle feats are going to be the ones that are going to up your curse. They're going to have big effects for low action cost, but they're going to up your curse. Is basically what they said. For example, they said one of the feats is going to let you use meta magic as a free action rather than a single action, which is pretty great, honestly. They've also added 2 new domains to each mystery, and you're going to be able to pick up those domains without taking a feat, which is pretty awesome. Honestly, I was glad to see so many big changes to the Oracle. Let's hope that this makes the Oracle a little easier to play. They really didn't say much about the Sorcerer, but they did say more bludgeon magic effects and higher level ones. Hopefully this gets people to actually pay attention to the blood magic effects, But I do think some of the lower level ones are good. They just completely get ignored, and hopefully this changes that. They're not really changing much with the Swashbuckler, but they are expanding it with new feats, including some with the Bravado trait. This trait is on anything that makes it easier for you to get panache. One of the new feats that the Swashbuckler is getting is called Switcheroo, which is literally, if you get targeted by a ranged attack, you can switch places with your enemy and make them take an arrow in the back instead of you, which is like a perfect Swashbuckler thing to do. I mean, really. Other than that, not really a whole lot for Swashbuckler. Okay, I do have a few more things to talk about in this video. They did talk a little bit about spells, how there are going to be spells in this book, and Vomit Swarm is going to be one of the spells in this book. We already knew that the Snare Crafter was going to be an archetype in this book, but they did say that that's going to be the main way you get snares now, but there is an exception for Rangers in that archetype. They also said that the Wrestler archetype is going to be in this book, and they're getting rid of some archetypes that were heavily OGL based, but they didn't say which ones. And that's pretty much everything that I got from the stream today on Player Core 2. But if I missed anything, go ahead and let me know in the comments. And let me know what you think of these spoilers. If you guys enjoyed this video, don't forget to leave a like and do all that other YouTube stuff. And if you want my videos early, at least most of them, you can become a member of this channel or join me on my Patreon page. Links are in the description. If you're more interested in the Starfinder 2e spoilers from PaizoCon, you can check out this video here. Thank you guys so much for watching, and remember, teamwork is vital. It helps us solve problems.